Well, it's time now for tonight's roundtable, where I'm joined by Breland Moore and Jared Kohler. All right, guys, it's officially Chiefs game week. So as KC prepares for opening night against Houston, the 53-man roster now officially set. But what are your takeaways from the Chiefs Week 1 depth chart, Breland?
Yeah, you know, I was actually a little surprised when it came to the roster cuts there. Matt Moore, obviously the biggest one there that we have seen. He's now on the practice squad. Yep. And Breland Speaks also gone, which that's a second-round draft pick. So that was also a little bit surprising, but understandable because he missed all of last year. And today in the presser, Brett Veach came and talked to us a little bit. He flat out said, he's like, listen, we wish him nothing but the best, but it's really difficult to miss an entire season because you're really behind the 8 ball at that point. And then sometimes you just struggle to catch up, and it was just an unfortunate decision. But this is a really good football team, and it's really difficult to make this roster because we have such amazing talent here. So that was a little bit, those are two surprising factors going into the 53-man, but I am super excited to see what this team can do. A lot of returners, as we've talked about all throughout the offseason. That core of the Super Bowl team is there, so I cannot wait to see what these guys have to do this year.
Jared, what are your biggest takeaways?
I'm actually going to disagree with Breland a little bit here because going into the year, I didn't think Matt Moore would contribute at all, and I didn't think Breland Speaks would contribute at all. But someone who I did count on, DeAndre Washington, because I want to keep us, I know he was never going to be the starting running back or anything, but let's keep in mind, he was a free agent. This wasn't somebody that they cut who they just had on the team already because he was a draft pick. No, they went out, identified him in free agency, paid him money to come to Kansas City. This was before Damian Williams announced that he was opting out. They did all that expecting that he would be a key member, and he didn't even make the 53-man roster. Yes, he's on the practice squad, but this isn't an indictment on Washington, in my opinion. This just shows how confident they are in those 3 running backs who they do have, because when Williams opted out, I thought for sure that meant Washington would be on the team. They'd even carry 4 running backs. No. They're carrying 4 tight ends, but not 4 running backs. And so that really speaks to the confidence that they have in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We've heard all about how impressive he's looked, but he's still a running back. And so for me, as we've talked about in this show, I'm from the show me state. I'm like, all right, show it to me, and then I'll start really believing. Obviously, he's got all the tools, perfect fit in Andy Reid's offense, but we just haven't seen him yet. I wasn't solely buying in that he'd be a top 5 to 10 running back in the NFL. But now if they're letting go of an experienced veteran like DeAndre Washington, who has had success, man, they really think Clyde can really come in, but then add that depth. Darrell Williams really hasn't impressed me that much. I know he's been hurt a lot, but I haven't seen it. And Darwin Thompson impressed in some showings, but he's still young. I thought they both would make the roster, but the fact that they don't feel the need to have that running back depth, even without Williams, was shocking to me because I thought that was one of the areas where they would need it most this year, this and the offensive line. So while, yeah, there's some names that we maybe recognize that were surprising, the fact that they're this confident in the running back room, it makes me even more confident. And hopefully, DeAndre Washington, maybe he will get back on the field because he has that rapport with Patrick Mahomes. Yep. Although, I won't feel too bad for Pat because he's getting to keep his guy Garrett Dieter on the practice squad.
Excuse you, Jared. By the way, put some respect on Matt Moore's name, man. He stepped in and stepped up when we needed him most last year and shined for Kansas City.
He did.
And in my defense, to be quite honest, I fully expected them to carry 3 quarterbacks into this season because of the pandemic situation, right? If somebody gets sick there, you're kind of in trouble. But Andy Reid said today flat out, he was like, you know, we're not even going to quarantine a quarterback because that was the main question of the day, is Matt Moore on the practice squad so he can kind of be that quarantine backup there. And Andy said he doesn't really feel the need to have that because he feels pretty confident in everything that they're doing in terms of social distancing and wearing masks and really testing and being safe within the facility. So he didn't see that as a necessary precaution. But that was kind of my mindset of, oh, they carried 3 last year. Why wouldn't you carry 3 into a pandemic? But Andy's obviously confident in the COVID protocols, so I let it fly. But Matt Moore, man, he stepped up when we needed him most.
He did, and so, I'm glad you said something. Shout out Matt Moore, big fan. But I'm like, all right, are we going to, heading into 2020, are we more likely to see the 3rd quarterback in Matt Moore or the 4th running back in DeAndre Washington? I guess I'm just loving me some Chad Henne. I guess that's where I was.
We are from the same hometown. I'm a big Chad Henne fan as well. So, you know, it is what it is. I'm fine with that decision as well. But do not disrespect Matt Moore like that.
I love that we are all so passionate, though, about the third string guys. Like, this is fantastic. No, and I think it's really cool. Guys, I always watch the receiving core and who is going to make that final 1 or 2 spots. I really want to give a shout out to Byron Pringle and Marcus Kemp. Being on the sideline last year during the preseason and watching Marcus Kemp go down with an ACL injury when he was having such a phenomenal preseason, it just absolutely broke my heart when he was carted off. So to see him rebound from that to being able to make the 53-man roster is huge. Plus, I love seeing what Byron Pringle has been able to do over the past season and how he's evolved as a receiver to now be part of this Legion of Zoom. So I think it's awesome that the two of them are good to go and will be a part of this roster moving forward. I do also think it's interesting that the Chiefs only kept 2 UDFAs, undrafted free agents, one of those being Yasir Duran on the offensive line, who's a Mizzou product. With Laurent Duvernay-Tardif opting out as well as Lucas Niang, that obviously opened up an opportunity on the offensive line. So I think he'll be a great addition, and I think it's really cool that a guy that's kind of local from Columbia gets that opportunity to play here on the Kansas City Chiefs hometown team. And so from those perspectives, that's kind of the fun that I'm having with this, and from the bubble cuts and how important this 53-man roster is. Plus also, I think one of the things we kind of discussed was that when the Chiefs brought in Adrian Colbert like 2 weeks ago, there were some questions about whether, okay, is Armani Watts actually going to be the guy? Is he going to be ready to go? Will Juan Thornhill, is he healthy enough? Is that the reason they bring in Adrian, who's got some veteran experience? And ultimately, we got our answer from the cuts and the fact that they let Adrian go. Juan Thornhill has looked really good during practices. Hopefully he's back and ready to go. And then, of course, Armani Watts has been a guy that they've kind of relied on for depth over the past year or two, and he looks like he's going to be pretty solid from a depth standpoint. So I like that they went with that, and I also am really pumped that Juan looks so good, because with him and Tyron there at safety, I mean, they are absolutely unstoppable, and for him to not play in the postseason was heart-wrenching. Hopefully he gets an opportunity to stay healthy throughout the entire season, and that secondary looks really, really good.